Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets with Karl Bryan. If you want to attract new high-end coaching clients, fill live events, and build a wildly profitable coaching practice where business owners pay, stay, and refer, you've come to the right place. In this podcast, Karl provides his keys to the kingdom for finding and signing high-paying clients and building the coaching business of your dreams. Here we go.
Tell you what we're going to do, guys, today. I'm going to do something a little bit differently, but I've got one of our absolute Rockstar coaches on the line. And what I'm going to do is I've been asked to do this a lot of times over the years. I'm going to interview Karl. His name's Karl Diffenderfer. Probably heard of him. He's a pretty popular guy. Been with us for a while, and he's somebody again. When I got him and I are pretty close, and I got a challenge, he's got a challenge. We're kind of back and forth a little bit. So this is my first interview. So I picked Karl, who I call him KD. He calls me KB, and I call him KD, by the way. So I invited KD, and I said, man, I want you to be my first interview. And he was, of course, because I was late to the prize of inviting him. He had a couple of things going, but he offered to push those things aside to be here with you guys today and to be here with me. So without further ado, I would like to introduce none other than Karl Diffenderfer. KD, how's it going?
Good. Thanks for having me, Karl. I appreciate it.
You bet, buddy. Honored to have you here, man. And going to put on a little bit of a show for all these coaches. I was going to open one other person together, but you know what? I think we should just get straight into this, buddy. What do you think? Any questions here for me before we open it up, start the podcast, and do the interview?
No, I'm just excited to walk this journey with all you coaches. We're all in this together, aren't we? And it's a learning process for all of us. And if any of us have arrived, well, then we're not really a good coach. So I'm here to learn from you guys just as much as you are to learn from me.
Nice. See why I invited them, guys? This is my first interview. There you go. KD, he's already knocking the ball out of the park, folks. All right. Okay. All right, KD, just give me 2 seconds here. I'm going to open up the podcast and we'll get going.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Hey. Karl Bryan coming at you. Little bit of a change of pace here today, guys. What we're going to do is I am going to interview one of our Rockstar clients, a Rockstar coach, period, and a very close friend. And I've been asked to do this many, many times over the last years, get some of our Rockstar clients on here and interview them. So I thought, you know what? I know who I'm going to call on, do my first interview. And it's none other than Mr. Karl Diffenderfer. I picked him for a reason, which I think is going to become abundantly clear over the next number of questions that I'm going to throw at him. But let me tell you, this is somebody who I have a tremendous amount of respect for, somebody who I have a pretty deep friendship with. And it's again, somebody, we said this on the pre-show, but somebody, when I've got some challenges and some questions and I kind of want to reach out, sometimes this whole coaching thing can be a little bit lonely, is what I have found. And this is one of the guys that one of my first calls, my first text, the first guy I reach out to. So without further ado, I want to introduce none other than Mr. Karl Diffenderfer. KD, how you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me, Karl. I'm excited to meet with everybody and talk with you today.
You bet, buddy. And how's it going, man? Give us just the overall KD state of affairs, man. It's Monday morning as we record. How you doing, buddy? Just tell me. Give us a peek into KD's life.
Well, I'm in a great season. I'm only 44, but I actually just found out here a few months ago that I'm going to be a grandpa. My 21-year-old and his wife are expecting, so that's kind of a weird feeling, isn't it?
Gramps, that is going to be one spoiled grandson. Or grandchild. There we go. Cool. But, so, okay. Well, sorry. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, but overall, things are going great. I've had a record-breaking year, learning and growing. Yeah, I have my moments. Karl and I were talking earlier. We have these moments where it is lonely, where you're like, okay, how am I doing this now? But that's what we have each other for, and that's what I appreciate about you asking me to be on the call, because we're here to help each other. And so I hope I can help each of you a little bit today.
Nice. There you go. Well, with that said, so tell us maybe a little bit of background. How long you been coaching?
About 11 years now.
11. Boom. All business coaching, or have you done life coaching slash? Have you done any kind of life coaching, or have you always been the business coach?
Well, yeah, I've done a little bit of life, spiritual, marriage, leadership. Now I only do business coaching, but early on, career coaching, I did it all just to get clients. But anymore, I've resided right in business coaching.
Yeah, there you go. Which often, guys, if you're listening, guys and gals, often the way everybody, the successful ones end up in business coaching. So good job. All right. So how long you been with us now? Focus.com?
Just about 2 years. And really, I love it. It's been a perfect fit for me and my practice and my coaches. Really happy to be part of the team.
You beauty. And a superstar member of that team you are, by the way. Again, guys, as I said, there's a few guys that we're reaching out to, guys and gals are reaching out to, and KD is at the absolute top of that heap. Hey, speaking of which, what about the software? Has profit acceleration software been helpful for you?
Yeah, 100%. Because it's been great because, Carl, I spent 8 years building my own systems. And I didn't even get close to what's inside of the profit acceleration focus system. And I could have saved a lot of time and energy and money if I had just jumped into a system that was already ready to go for me. It would have accelerated my growth so much. So I kind of wish I had found it sooner.
There you go. That's what we always like to hear, by the way. And by the way, so last month, again, you do some pretty impressive numbers. Tell me, was it last month, I believe, you had a record-setting month? About that?
Yeah, I had a record-setting month in July. I had a $75,000 month, $75,000 month, which I've never hit before. I'm going to hit it again, though. I was actually going to go over that, but it was a great month.
There you go. Next stop, 100 grand, 6-figure month. Looks good on you.
Yep.
What about you? Also, you had you and I were chatting about a monumental win you had with a client. Tell me about that. What was I think you took them to 1 to 5 mil. Tell me about that monumental win you had with a client, would you?
So, with our clients, we definitely want to grow their money. And I took this client from 1 million to, he's at about 5 million in revenue. I think he's going to be franchising here at some point. So we have some huge growth ahead. But more importantly, we found him freedom in his business. So now he's realized that he wants to spend more time with his family and have his business be secondary in his life. And so watching him go on that journey of having his business run him to him running his business, and then enjoying the freedom of being able to go on more vacations with his family and things like that, that's where the success lies.
I love it. So to be clear, so you met him and he was doing, what was it, roughly 1 million? He was doing
about 1 million
a year.
Yeah, yep.
7 figures and accomplished. And guys, again, if you're listening to this, line me up 100 business owners and I'll introduce you to 80 people, if not 95, with the goal of getting their business to $1 million, right? So he has accomplished what everybody's kind of set out to do. But KD took him to 5 million. And just to be clear, so at 5 million, he had more time than he had at 1 million. Is that correct? That fundamentally it?
That's correct. Yeah, he spends part of his day at his work now. He's at his gym. He's recording a podcast. Actually, he's brand new inside of the Focus coaching team. He's going to become a coach. So
boom. Okay. So hang on, I want everybody to hear this because this is something that some might not realize that this happens insanely. To say it's organic might be a little bit of an exaggeration, but I think it's probably like a 20-80 thing where 20% of the time, your high-end coaching clients, the ones that really knock it out of the park, like this guy going to 1 to 5. And by the way, 5 million, right? It's not like a massive business by any stretch of the imagination, but it's certainly, doing about 5 times better than everybody else is setting out as their goal. So let's give them full props, and KD full props for getting them there. But basically what will happen is organically they go, wow, I love my business and that's great, but I want to do what you do. So having a process where they can naturally make that happen, and no doubt the folks in the focus.com world know that we have a system for basically allowing you to do that. But a lot of the time, you are going to find your really successful clients like the idea of becoming a business coach underneath you. So you should, it's not that you want to push them in that direction, because I don't think that would be the right approach, but you absolutely want to keep your ears and eyes to the ground for folks that want to do it, because I think you can really, like in this instance, without meeting this guy, folks, no doubt you can imagine he went from 1 to 5 million in record time, loved the coaching, responded to the coaching, went really well with the coaching. Do you think he's going to be successful as a business coach? I think we all know the answer there, right? Anyway, so something to think about for the folks. But look, so there's the success, right? And we love that, Katie, right? And you've had a lot of it. But talk to me about a time when you've been like, I don't know, frustrated. Let's go like frustrated with your coaching results and the dynamics around it.
Yeah. So, this is going to be a fun story. I'm going to be very vulnerable and transparent here.
Nice.
But that's one of the keys to being a good coach. We have to be coachable ourselves, and if we're not, then we're not going to be a good coach. We don't have it all figured out, nor are we going to. We're in a constant state of learning and growing ourselves. And so I have this story. I was getting coached by another coach, and it was actually him and another coach, and so I was on this coaching call, and this coach of his that was coaching me, one from his team, man, he was so rude. He just was kind of a jerk on the calls, and I didn't know why. I didn't know what was wrong. So I eventually went to this coach and I said, "Hey, this isn't working. Why are you being so rude to me?" And he's like, "Oh, yeah, just suck it up. You're going to be fine." And I'm like, I'm your client. I'm paying you, so you be nice to me, And it was on a group call, so it was in front of a bunch of other coaches, and it was embarrassing. And so I decided to go to his boss, so talked to his boss for a moment and said, "Hey, this is what's happening." He said, "Okay, well, let me look at the recordings and I'll get back to you." So I'll never forget. I was driving in the car with my family, and I got this call from the coach, the senior coach, and he says, "Hey, Carl, I wanted to let you know I looked at the recordings, and you're not wrong. That other guy, my coach. He's being pretty rude." That's when I was like, my ears perked up because he said, "But," and I'm like, "Oh no." And what does he say? He said, "Carl, I just want to tell you, you always have an excuse for everything on the calls. Now, doesn't that hurt? That's a zinger. I'm a coach. I'm a successful coach at this point. This was only in the last, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 years. And here I am being told that I have an excuse for everything." And so I'm sitting there, and I was like, my blood's starting to boil, and I can just feel like I'm getting mad. And so I said, "Hey, give me a second." So I put him on mute. My wife's sitting next to me, and I turned to her and I said, "He just said that I have an excuse for everything. Do I have an excuse for everything?" And there was silence. And I'm like, "Oh no." She's like, "Yeah, Carl, you do." See, I needed that moment in time. That was a pivotal moment for me, because what I had done was I had reasons why things didn't work. I had, well, this didn't work because of this, and this didn't work because of this, but they were all external. It was, well, that didn't work because of that system over there, or this or that. And at the end of the day, I wasn't taking responsibility for my results. And so I guess a challenge for all of you coaches out there, look at where you have reasons why. I say reasons in quotes. I'm holding my fingers up. What are your reasons why something's not working? And then take all the external factors off the table and say, okay, I'm responsible for the results of this. What am I going to do differently? And own it. Own up to it. You can do it.
Yeah. Would that be example comes to mind? Like it's one of those things where you tend to be looking out the window when you need to be looking in the mirror. Would that be fair?
Yeah.
That was at the moment?
It was, yeah. I mean, I was blaming all the systems that I had in place and the software, and well, this didn't work because of this, and I'm not getting calls from people, so that's why it's not working. It was mainly lead gen stuff. And at the end of the day, then I needed to ramp up my efforts. I needed to do more. I needed to change what I was doing, and I wasn't. So it was on me.
I love it. You mentioned systems. When I think of you, I think of high systems guy, right?
Hmm.
So
Yep.
just on benefit of the coaches, because everybody knows if you want to be able to, leverage. One of the things with coaching is it's time for money, and that can be a battle, right?
Yep.
And as you get more successful, it's just more time, which you quickly run out of, and those successful in coaching will understand what I mean there. So to combat that, and if that's the problem, then the solution is systems, and you're a real systems guy. So just talk to me about, I guess, your mindset around systems. Can you do that for me?
Yeah. Yeah. So as I've coached coaches and watched myself over the years, and watched business owners too, many coaches love to be creative and they love to build things, but they don't love to execute things. And that's one of the problems that I had too. And so I realized that I was always just building a new system. I was always on to the next thing. But when I really look back on it, I wasn't uh, successful and faithful at executing those things over and over and over until they actually achieved the success. And so I guess a challenge for you coaches out there as you think about this, for your clients and for you, what are the systems that you've built that maybe you've gotten to 90%, but never gotten them to 100%? And then what are the systems that you've gotten to 100%, but you've never taken a good chunk of time to refine and take that system to the spot where it's actually generating the results that it's supposed to? Um, that's one of the things I've learned over the years.
Yeah. Okay. So I just want to make sure everybody is what you just said is that you found yourself spending all your time building the systems, but you actually weren't executing in a lot of ways. So it was almost like procrastination for you. Like you were just fixing the systems, and then you weren't
Yep.
executing, you weren't applying. So then the clients weren't coming, the revenues weren't coming, weren't growing the way that you'd expected.
Yeah, I mean, so think about it. I'll give an example. I needed to build my email marketing system.
Yep.
And so I started, building it out. But at the end of the day, I never actually took the time to label all the people appropriately in the system. And so taking the time to create the tags for everybody, it's a hard task. Um, so I've sat on a database of 5,000 people for how many years, and I never actually organized them so that I could actually send an email to them. And that list went from a warm list to a cold list. When I sent emails out to those people, I had a ton of unsubscribes because I sat on it for too long and just kind of, well, don't have the email quite right. Oh, I need to organize the database a little better. And my perfectionism was getting in my own way.
Yeah. You injured what do I say? I'm sure this is somebody saying out there, but you introduce me to a perfectionist, and I'll introduce you to somebody who doesn't get a lot done. Right. And by the way, Carl, be very clear. That's not you. That is. I'm sure you've had moments in time where you weren't as productive as ideal, but you are not. You know what I mean. I understand what you're saying, and it's for the benefit of everybody listening. You are not the guy who stays in perfection land. You are an executor all day long, and frankly, and you know that. That's one of the things I really love about you. So. But I love the vulnerability. I love the. You
Yeah.
know what? There's three things that come to mind. One is that I literally wrote. I may have said this last week actually on my podcast, but I wrote this on when I walk into my office right now, which I'm not in right now. But as I walk into it, here's what's written on my whiteboard: is stop executing on ideas and start executing on plans. So it's just, again, it's all well and good to say, look, we got to execute, but we got to make sure that there's a plan, right? Um, which, by the way, is not perfectly relevant to what you were just saying there, but I think the power of that is insane. I can also tell you that another thing that I have written on my whiteboard is the money is in the execution, right?
Yeah.
That got to execute, folks. Again, if look, it's what is the saying? Ready, aim, fire, something along those lines. So depending upon which side you fall on, you might be the person that's like sitting there planning to death and then not executing. But at the same time, you don't want to just execute on like ideas and then not taking the time to put together the plan. Because remember, it's the plan. Here's something that might be helpful to those listening, right? Like the plan. Like everybody's look. Katie, right? We both go and we write, we're going to start XYZ business, and then we write a plan. In 6 months' time, if not 6 days' time, how good is that plan? Not very good, right? Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like Mike
Yeah.
Tyson, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth, right? But you know what's critical is the planning. And I think that's a quote by Dwight Eisenhower where he says it's, the magic is not in the plan, the magic is in the planning. And you can't get to the plan without the planning. So don't forgo the planning, or don't forgo the plan, because you don't think that it's going to be useful once you get punched in the mouth. I love Mike Tyson, but I can tell you that the planning is what's going to allow you. Think of, for somebody that's playing hockey, playing football, playing baseball, doing a marathon. It's it's the training for the marathon that will allow you to get that last 5 miles done, right? Anyway, so a couple little thoughts
Yeah.
there, but for sure getting
Can
stuck.
I add to that
Money is
real
the
quick?
execution is the big one I wanted to get. Yes, please go.
Yeah. So just a thought to add to that too is that sometimes we over engineer things. So we say, oh, I want to do this and this and this, and it's going to do this and it's going to do this, and we're so excited about the system. And recently, I realized that it's good for me to dream out to where I want it to be, but I have to take a small piece of it and say, I'm going to do this successfully right now, and then add a second piece to it and do that successfully until I have the whole system built, as opposed to trying to do it all at once. So take something small, do it well, and you'll start to see more results faster from that.
Yeah, I love it. That reminds me. So I often tell the story of uh, oh shoot, can't remember the guy that built Zappos. Do you know what I'm talking about? The guy who built Zappos, poor bugger.
I don't know.
Anyway, so he passed away. Tony Hsieh wrote a real famous book, built Zappos, billionaire, little bit, eccentric times 10 if you know his story, which I know it well. But at the end of the day, he built Zappos. So he's mad as a hat. And one of the things he wanted to do was take on world peace, right? And like, why? Because no one else was taking it on, and he thought he was the guy that could get it done. He's very, very, very successful guy. And one of the things that he did that I think is just, I remember it literally took my breath away when I kind of heard this, saw this, maybe worked it out. But it was that he wanted to take on world peace, but his plan was he was going to create 1 minute of world peace, right? You get the magic of that? Like, he knew that it was just too big and too monumental to complete, right? So he was going to do a minute. And then guess what he would do next year? I bet it would have been 2 minutes. I don't know, right? But I know I only heard the 1 minute, but next year it would be 2 minutes. And then the following year, he might move it to 10 minutes. And then it would hopefully eventually get to an hour. And then an hour could become a day, right? And then what could a day do? But you get the magic of it, though. It's just like he wanted to take on world peace, and he knew that it was so monstrous. And how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And he basically wanted to create 1 minute of world peace. And again, I don't know if that's as, you know what I mean, groundbreaking for those listening as it was for me, but honest to goodness, it was a take my breath away moment. And I just went, oh my gosh. Like, you want to do something monumental. And again, you're the systems guy. You want to build a system that crushes it. You know that you need to just start with something, you know what I mean? Like a very small piece of it, and then let it grow organically. So, or would you agree with? What do you think of that? What do you think of that?
100%. Like, that's one of my biggest pitfalls. Is I'm great at thinking about the big picture, the vision of where we're going, but breaking it down into those small bite-sized chunks and then executing those small bite-sized chunks is just so important.
Yep. And getting started, though, right?
Yeah.
Getting started. That's the magic.
Moving to action. Not and actually that. I think you have another question for me that actually plays right off of that. I don't know if you're ready for that question yet or not, but
the next question I wanted to ask you was about lead. I just want to talk to me about lead. Is that what you wanted? Like, talk to me about lead. Would that be it?
That is, yeah. So, one of the things, talking about moving to action, one of the biggest things that I see happening with myself, with other coaches, even with business owners, is that they have a focus on, I'm going to say what maybe is the easiest for them. I call it the farming, where we go plant seeds. And I don't know, this might be from a book. I don't remember where I saw this, but you plant seeds and you wait for it to grow and you watch. And, social media is a form of farming. We're going out and we're posting things, hoping that one person out there is going to respond to that post. But the action really lies in the hunting, where we're actually picking a specific person or audience that we're going after, and we're hunting them. We're not waiting for them to come to us. And so when we talk about action, I see a lot of coaches get stuck in the farming world when they really should be in the hunting world. And by the way, we talk about live events in Focused. That's very much hunting. So that's not a farming action at all. If you want to think about it, hunting is very focused on smaller groups of people and really converting those people. The farming is large groups of people or large amounts of people with the hope that they're going to see it and want something.
Nice. So, okay, where would be the best breeding ground? Like, are you picturing, is it like social media? Is it network? Where are you doing this farming? Curious.
The farming or the hunting?
Sorry, the hunting.
The hunting. Yeah. Okay. So by the way, you want to have like an 80-20 rule with that. You want to have 80% on hunting, 20% on farming. And then
Nice.
As you grow as a coach, when you get to that $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a month, then you can start putting a marketing budget towards the actual farming that's going to generate your future leads. By the way, the hunting is very time consuming, but it's not always especially very costly. So you can put time into it and get the clients that way.
Yep.
To answer your question, I think the public speaking, the live events, the networking groups like BNI, BNI has generated hundreds of thousands of dollars for me over the years. And then finally, the joint ventures, building long-term relationships with key people that know and understand what you do, and they believe in it so much that they're willing to refer their clients. And by the way, coaches out there, when you're trying to build a joint venture relationship with somebody, just offer to coach them. Say, hey, I want to show you how this coaching works. And then you're gonna believe in it so much you're gonna want to refer me. I do it for free. I don't charge them, but I can't tell you how many times I've gotten clients out of that because they're unsuspecting at that point. And then they come back and they're like, "That's really good. I want that." And so then they sign up as a client. Now I get them as a client and a referral partner.
Yeah. So just to be, the way you describe that, you're selling through them versus to them. So an example, would that be an accountant? Give me a couple of examples of the types of people you would do that for.
Yeah, business attorneys have been great over the years, guys that do business law. CPAs can work. They can be difficult sometimes, though. They don't like opening their client base. They hold them very close. I'm trying to think here. Good referral partners.
Anybody?
Credit card. Yeah, B2B, credit card processors, payroll processors. Yeah.
Accountants.
Yep.
Company.
Bookkeepers. Bookkeepers are great.
Yeah, there you go. Bottom line, B2B. So it's for everybody, like B2B, right? Especially where you feel comfortable. Like Katie, you feel comfortable in certain niches, and then somebody else, might feel comfortable elsewhere. Like, I co-wrote a book on accounting. Do you know what I mean? Talking to an accountant is something that and I'm not an accountant, but I just feel very, very comfortable talking to accountants because I understand their three biggest. I understand an accountant's three biggest problems, right?
Yeah, that's the key, though. Yes, you have to understand what's important to them and what their pains are, and then and also what their customers' pains are as well. And if you understand the problem they fix, and you can provide some kind of value to go with that, man, they're going to be so happy.
Yep, I love it. But just so everybody, so Tom Brady threw the football for free for a while before he started getting paid, and apparently it worked out pretty good. So what you're saying to everybody listening, it's okay to coach a client for free because they'll leverage. And by the way, once in a while, you probably I have coached people for free with that exact dynamic, and guess what happened? Nothing. Right? It didn't work out. And what do? Do I stop? Right? Absolutely not. So you're telling them, again, it is okay to coach for free, and the leverage that you can potentially build up because you're selling through versus to can be incredible, like to the tune of 30, 60, 100 clients from one accountant, one business attorney, one processing company, et cetera. Right?
Yeah, 100%. And keep in mind, coaches, that as you coach people for free, you're getting the opportunity to master the craft of coaching. As you master that craft everybody's going to want your coaching. So I coached so much for free in the beginning, and it was because I decided that I cared more about bringing value and helping the world become a better place than I did about the money that was going to come with it. Now, the money came later, but I had to start off just by caring more about the people. And by the way, the coaching for free, I did it out of the goodness of my heart. Most of those clients never paid anything. Some of them never became clients at all. That's okay. I made a difference in their lives, and that's the important part.
Yeah. And maybe if I could, so that, and again, Katie, you've been doing very, very well financially, in monthly revenues for a long time. But for somebody else listening, you got to be careful to think, like, once I get to this point, like the way that you know, basically be willing. What you got to do is put in the reps in order to get the results.
Yep.
But if you're in a
Yep.
position where you feel like you'll really be losing out by coaching this individual for free, which, by the way, is a weak mindset, you got to deal with that. But the way that you can make yourself feel a little bit better about it, do a really good job and ask them for a referral versus payment. And often those referrals will pay for the free coaching in spades. And that's a way that you can, compartmentalize it in your head that it really works in a positive way.
Well, and what I do is you have to set the stage for that up front. So if you're going to coach them for free, tell them how valuable your time is. They don't need to know how many clients you have. They don't need to know. Just say, hey, you know what? I have a spot right now that I can help a client right now like you, and I'm happy to help you. Well, what I'd like to ask is if I coach you and I provide value, would you be willing to open up your Rolodex, or however you want to say it, your iPhone, and just introduce me to 3 people that I could maybe help? And so they have no idea how many clients you have, and they should never know. Don't if you're hurting, don't wear that on your face. They don't need to know. Oftentimes, even when I needed 10 clients, I would say I have 2 slots open for a new client right now. And I wasn't lying. I actually honestly only had 2 open that month. I was going to open another 2 the next month, but they didn't know that. And so that way there was always a level of demand for my coaching.
Yeah. So just again, I want to make sure everybody heard what you just said. You got to use scarcity, correct? If you're not using scarcity, you are like, scarcity it's not Katie's opinion and it's not my opinion. I mean, there's rules of the universe that you're best to follow, and people want what they can't have. And scarcity is something that motivates people, the end, right? Like I wrote an article, it was a long time ago now, but it was on the 5 most successful McDonald's offers of all time. And I was like, they all have one thing in common. What do you think it is? And guess what it was? It was scared. It was actually it was a time, you know what I mean? What am I trying to say? It was like it expired on a certain date, right? It was a little bit different than scarcity, but at the end of the day, they had, you need to get in there and buy this thing today because the pizzas are going, or the McRib is only good for this period of time. But anyway, so there you go. So folks, please take that away. KD closes his clients at high dollar figures. He uses scarcity, and so should you. Another question for you here, buddy. Like, I put you up there, like, you keep your clients for a long time and debatably as good as anybody in the coaching space. Talk to me a little bit about, I guess, how you do that. And I'd also like to understand your mindset around how you manage to do that. So talk to me about client retention and your magic around it.
Yeah. A lot of things come to my mind. The first one actually goes back to the concept of who you are, and where you are, and how you are as a coach. I have found that the greatest way for me to lose a client is for me not to be on my A game. And my A game is created through my own personal learning and growth and my mind space, my head space. So if I'm not learning and growing as a coach, I am in the process of losing my clients, because I lose passion. When I'm learning and growing, I'm passionate, and then I show up for the session and I'm excited to meet with them. If you're not excited to meet with them, you're going to lose them. Now, maybe you should lose them if you're not excited. That's something you have to figure out. But that would be number one. Number two, as you meet with your clients, you need to meet with them where they're at. I say to people, if I don't believe in you, I can't coach you. And so if you're meeting with them and you see where they're at, you see the potential of where they could be, and you're willing to walk that path with them in the pace that is their pace, not your pace, and you're willing to meet up with them every week and show up and just walk with them, you will keep them a long time. Now, one of the factors with this, though, is that you need to know what's important to them. And if you don't know, you need to ask them and find out. So your coaching really should start with questions each week. How was your week? What was your greatest win this week? What are you really excited about right now? What's holding you back right now? All those types of questions. They'll open up, they'll share. And if all you do in that session is let them process through their week, great. Now, at the end of the session, you might say, oh, why did I provide value? Were they pleased? Are they happy with this? Don't second guess yourself. You can certainly check in with them every once in a while to say, hey, how are we doing in the coaching? Am I doing a good job? Do I need to change how I'm coaching you? Yes, do that. But if you show up to the session scared about the fact that you're not providing them value, they're going to pick up on it and you're going to be done. So go in with confidence and say, I am providing value and I believe that. And they're going to tell me if they don't. By the way, I have that in my contract. If I'm not providing value, you're going to tell me. They agree to that with me in the upfront contract, the actual signed contract. They're going to talk to me if something's not working. They agree to that.
Nice.
And so, yeah, I think that's a very important part of it.
Yeah. So you literally write into the agreement. So like you're coaching me and I'm paying you my monthly fee and we're getting together twice a month. What do you do? Twice a month normally?
Once a week to twice a month. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So, and if I feel like you're dropping the ball or I'm not, no, if I feel like I'm not getting the benefit that I'm looking for, it's my job. Like I've agreed in writing to let you know, because otherwise, how can you possibly, how can you know what I mean? How can you correct it if you don't know about it?
Yep. And one of the things I do is I require, now I don't do this anymore, but in the early days, I required 30 days notice to cancel. So when I signed the client, I said, you agree that you're going to give me at least 30 days notice. So maybe we're only going to coach 2 months together, the first month and then 30 days. Maybe we're going to coach 6 months. I don't know. Maybe we're going to be 5 years, but you have to give me 30 days notice. And so when they gave me that 30 days notice, that gave me 2 to 4 more sessions to right the ship and win them back. And I did that so many times because oftentimes there was something that was happening that I just needed to change my approach a little bit. Like the one client was like, hey, we're not spending enough time working on my goals and you holding me accountable each week. Well, that's easy. Let's spend more time on that. And so, I saved the client just by understanding what it was that they needed.
Yeah. I love it. That is it. So there's just, at the end of the day, there's what the client wants and then what the client needs. You know what I mean? You sell them on what they want and you get them really excited about what they want. But at some stage there becomes this transition where you got an obligation, I would say, to basically transition into what they need. You got to go a few levels deep, and your relationship has to be pretty, like, it needs to be getting stronger as you're moving along so that they're more open to you basically doing that. In fact, let me ask, would you agree with what I just said? You do
100%. And if you know what they need, you have to still meet them where they're at. So you might begin to drip on them what they need, but they might not be ready for it. And so you have to kind of meet them there and say, well, have you thought about this? And they'll say, no, I don't like that. Okay, all right. And then a couple of weeks later, they're still dealing with the issue. Well, did you give any more thought to that idea? And eventually they'll open up to it. I'll never forget, I had a client that he lost all of his employees he had a septic hauling company. And so they hauled poop around basically. and
nice.
He had three trucks going full time, and he lost all 3 of his guys. So he's running around like a madman, running this septic truck all day, every day, extra hours. And I said to him, I was like, have you thought about just taking a week off and going out and finding 1 or 2 of those guys that you need to run the truck so you don't have to be doing it? Well, I thought about that. Well, I don't have time. Okay. So we met the next week, and then we met the next. He still didn't do it. And finally, a month later, he's like, I think you're right, Carl. I'm burning out. I can't keep doing this. So we had to wait a month, but we got there. And that's why I say meet them where they're at. You might be able to see where they need to go, but you still have to meet them where they're at. So
like with that individual, he needed, like in week 1, he hadn't experienced enough pain in order to hear what you said. And then after doing it for 3-4 weeks and he's completely burnt out and just can't keep up. And he's like, okay, I understand now. Is that
Yeah,
fair, Carl?
100%. 100%. And keep in mind that you need to brainstorm with them. They need to own the results. So you can give them, hey, other solutions that I've seen that work are this. What ideas do you have? And so they'll start contributing. You're brainstorming with them. And then at the end, you say, okay, well, which one are you going to commit to? And the reason you do that is you want them to commit to their own results. You don't want to force them into what you think they need. They need to own it. And so if you're trying to force them into it and they fail, it's on you. And honestly, they're not going to care about it as much as if you ask them the right questions and they own it. They're going to go after it a lot more than if you just tell them what to do.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. But again, I hope you guys heard that. Again, that there's sometimes they're just not ready, and that doesn't mean that they're not going to be ready. You got to give them a little bit of, you got to give them a little bit more rope, or you got to give them a little bit more time.
Yep.
So thinking about that. And by the way, we kind of both laughed, like you said, poop business, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
a lot of folks are here and kind of giggle, right? But let me tell you, is if I had $1 for every time in coaching that told me they're going to realtors, they're going to chiropractors, and they're going to dentists, right? Everybody seems to be going to those niches. Why? Because they're right there and they're out in front of you. I can tell you that sometimes, often, I don't know often, because again, every situation is slightly unique, but the poop business can be a fabulous business to be in, incredibly
Yeah,
profitable. And it's not like everybody's dying to get into the poop business the way that everybody wants to become a realtor, right?
well, so here's one of the things to look at when you're looking for a client. This is a little tidbit that I found. You want to look for companies that have a lot of assets, a lot of things of value. Maybe they have debt with those assets, maybe they don't, but they have
Yeah.
a lot of high value assets because they're used to spending $50,000 a year on big toys. So for them to spend $50 or $100,000 a year with you as a coach is an easier thought because they have millions of dollars generated through their business because of all the high value assets that they have. Um, so excavators, the manure. I actually have two ends. I have manure hauling and poop hauling. Like I have both of those spectrums, and they're good clients. So yeah.
I love it. Well, funny story, Katie, that you probably don't know about I have a 10-year-old daughter, and we have an ongoing joke about poop. Her nickname when she was a baby was Poopy Pants.
Oh,
so,
nice.
so anyway, so we have this ongoing joke about poop, and my wife always says, like every time we sit down to dinner, somehow poop comes up.
No, nice.
And in fact, I may or may not have sent out a joke today about Taylor Swift and poop and Travis Kelsey. But anyways, so poop. What's the and yeah? So, but my daughter and I have this ongoing thing about poop. This is what I was going to say, and also her best friend, and like it's not just on my side that we're talking about poop. She's equally guilty. So her best friend, they're like really really tight. They call each other poop besties. And yes, it makes absolutely no sense, and I can't explain it, but what a poop bestie is versus just a bestie. But anyway, so there you go. So the poop trucks. I'm very excited that you're working with poop trucks. Maybe we're destined to go and help poop trucks together. Okay, all right. Hey, and by the way, I wrote down this note that I just did it when you were talking about lead gen. I just want everybody to hear it. One of the things, guys, Katie's obviously doing very, very well, doing some big revenues, and there's a good chance that you're listening to this trying to get there, right? Or here's how I answered the question that I got asked from one of our guys, Carl. How do I get to $1 million with my coaching? And it was kind of asked in the way that legitimately get there. Like I don't want to pretend, I don't want to hope. Like I'm going to get there. Help me fast track it. And the answer looked a little bit differently than what they were expecting. But it was like, first of all, the first question is little red arrow. You are here. Where are you at? And what I'm about to describe is a feedback loop. Okay. But how you go from, and he was, let's just say at 250 grand for the sake of the argument.
Mm-hmm.
But the way you get from 250 grand to $1 million is a feedback loop. Or maybe let me give you some real easy numbers for those listening. Like you're at 100 grand, and let's assume it costs you 20 grand to run your business. So you end up with $80,000 of profit. So if you let's say you live off of 40, and hopefully you can manage to do that, depending upon where you live, right? But let's just easy numbers. You made 100 grand. There's $80,000 of profit. You take 40, so you have $40,000. If you live on 40, you got 40,000 left. What you do is you take that 40, and instead of buying a new car or spending it on stuff, and remember, if you buy stuff, you end up with stuff, take the 40 and hire a staff member. Take the 40 and buy online advertising. Take the 40 and basically put it back into your company. And no, you won't. Yep. There's a really good chance you won't be successful. And you know this, KD, right? They'll light the 40 grand on fire. But whilst lighting the 40 grand on fire, a bit like our poop bud, you're going to learn a lesson. You're probably going to experience some pain, and maybe you'll knock it out of the park straight away, which would be amazing. And we'll both high five you. But realistically, there might be a little bit of pain associated with spending that 40. So then what you do is now you get to 200. And let's just assume for simple, there's $160,000 of profit there, depending upon the way that you're running your company. Once again, what do you got to do? Instead of going, well, here's what the average coach does. They go buy a boat, they buy a new truck, they buy a new car, they start flying first class and trying to be a big deal. And remember, looking like a big deal is not the same as being a big deal. In fact, they're categorically different. So you've got to do, make 200, live on 60. And Warren Buffett will tell you that's a really good idea, which he still, he pretends like he tries to do that. By the way, the guy's got his own jet, but let's not worry about Grandpa Buffett, right? What you got to do, though, live on 60. And then, again, call it, you got 140 that you can feed back into your company, right? So, and are you going to feed it all back in? That might not, that wouldn't be, we wouldn't suggest that because it'd be a little bit too high. Like you're probably not ready to go and feed 6 figures back into your company, but you got to feed a percentage of it, right? And I say that because, Katie, would you agree? You meet coaches all the time and they're cruising along and then they're not investing in the company. In fact, they're not even investing in themselves. And you mentioned, earlier, you have a coach, you invest in a coach. Right? Yeah. Anyway, so just the feedback loop, right? I think, so my question is for you, would you agree with that? And I know that you've done this in many, many different ways, but would you agree with that? That's the way that you manage to get to your $75,000 a month is by feeding money back into your company and not taking the money and flying first class like a big shot.
Yeah. So yes, part of it is taking that money and reapplying it. I agree 100%. And then as you reapply it, don't give up. If like, for example, with Focused, if you've bought into Focused and you've been in it for 6 months and you're like, man, I'm just not getting the results. Don't give up because I believe in this system. This system will get you there. And so when you get to that spot of, oh, geez, am I going to be able, just keep going at it because you will get there. So you need to reinvest into yourself in the right things. I've seen some coaches go out and maybe, join one of those $30,000 a year masterminds. Sometimes those can be good for lead gen, but you're not going to especially learn a whole lot. Maybe you'll learn some, but so you got to pick the right things to invest in. And also remember, what coach would you ever want to work with that isn't willing to be coached themselves? And so you as a coach, you have to be constantly learning and growing through other coaches and other advisors and people that can help you on your journey. As you do that, then you'll be able to pull people up from beneath you up to where you are. And as long as Carl Bryan, I've never told you this, but when I was 20 years old, for 20 to 30, I met with a 70-year-old guy every week to learn and grow from him. He did it for free. He just was mentoring me. But I was meeting with a guy 50 years older than me, and I learned so much through him. So learn and grow from people that have gotten there.
I love it. There we go. Nicely said. All right. Look, KD, Karl Diffenderfer, thank you so much, bud. Thank you for your time on behalf of everybody here listening. Excited to have you here. As you know, you're my first coach up in my interview here. So I appreciate it because you had other things to do and you moved them aside to make time for me today. So make time for us. So I want to give you a big high five and thank you so much for your heart. Thank you so much for the way that you give. You are a pure coach, man. And I appreciate you, bud.
Thank you, Carl. I appreciate that so much.
Okay, man. Take care.
Okay. All right. Take care.
Karl Bryan built Profit Acceleration Software 2.0 to train business coaches how to find any small business owner more than $100,000 in 45 minutes without them spending an extra dollar on marketing or advertising. This becomes a business coach's superpower. So as a business coach, you'll never again have to worry about working with business owners that can't afford your high-end coaching fees. Check us out at focused.com.